Hello and welcome. Why do people think that we must experience a physical death in order to experience heaven? How would it change your life if you knew that heaven does not require a physical transition to death, but a mental transition to an increased awareness of our world? I'm Dr. Lynette, and this video is one in a series of videos about heaven on earth. And if you want to see previous or future videos, subscribe to the channel. So in this video, I'm going to look at the ways that barriers cloud our awareness of the power of our lives, why our brains do this, why our brains have these barriers, and about the perspective that we create while we are in a state of clouded awareness, thus reinforcing and furthering these barriers. I'll explain how to get these barriers out of our way and how to see the possibilities waiting for us when we accept our responsibility to acknowledge and act according to heaven on earth, also known as the incomprehensible yet very accessible love on earth. Now, what if you were aware of every act on this planet that is being done right now to develop and improve the world through the strength of love? And what if you could see all the possibilities you could choose from now to impact the world for the future that you want to see? How can you upgrade your awareness to understand and see these possibilities? Well, it requires a decision to intentionally focus and seek this awareness. So as I go through this video, ask yourself these 3 questions. First, what are the barriers that limit or get in my way of being aware of my part in heaven on earth? Number 2, how can I get these barriers out of my way? And number 3, what are the possibilities for my life if I accept my power and responsibility to learn about, focus on, and act in service to heaven on earth? So, what are the barriers to awareness and what can we do to get rid of them? Well, barriers are not things. A barrier is a focus. It's a focus that distracts people from comprehending and experiencing their power to impact the world in valuable and beneficial ways. Now, although I did do an entire video about how to upgrade your awareness, here I want to just remind us that your focus is your steering wheel. The direction or the trajectory that you send your focus is where your life, your vehicle, is headed. Be aware of as many potential ways to focus as you can, and then choose to focus in ways that drive you into opportunities and not limits, into creation and not into destruction. You can't focus everywhere at once, so you have to choose. If you focus on what is destructive, then love will appear to be absent. If you focus on what is productive and enriching, you will see where love is operating. Your focus is the ultimate cleanser of obstacles between your subjective experience and your experience of heaven. The way that you contextualize and focus in each and every situation will determine your choices, moving you further towards where you focus. So you want to broaden your awareness and be selective then in where you choose to focus. A destructive focus is a barrier. So how do barriers develop? Well, by default, our brains use thoughts and perceptions that are learned from, conditioned by, and grow further into our environment. We have our environment, and by default, we just sort of become more of it. These thoughts, they create emotions, and the emotions reinforce and magnify the thoughts that created them. So barriers come from these default patterns of thought that are controlled by the environment. But you don't want your thoughts controlled by the environment. You don't. You want to intentionally control your own thoughts. So by recognizing our default patterns, we can drive our minds, we can drive our focus on purpose. We can on purpose intentionally drive our focus and look out beyond these old default patterns and intentionally create more astute thought patterns, and this creates a greater awareness. You can change the connections your brain is making by tracking incoming stimuli differently. You can actually change the wiring or the thought connections in your brain by learning broader understandings of cause and effect and deeper meanings of for your interpretations and of the world, and further and greater contextualizations. So you want to learn deeper meanings for your interpretations of what's happening, and then you want to broaden contextualizations about what you see happening. And I did make several videos about how to do that. So you can look at those on the channel. Now, the more comprehensive your awareness is, the more you realize that there are always more factors occurring than you can ever fully understand. And this means that it's important to interpret incoming information with the understanding that everything has more purpose and meaning that can be understood in the present moment. By interpreting in this way, your brain's neurotransmitters release endorphins. Endorphins are a healing chemical that, among other benefits, helps calm your nervous system and enables you to think more comprehensively, rather than producing the chemical cortisol that occurs when an event is perceived from a default thought pattern of anxiety or fear. And eventually, the chemical pathway that you choose becomes your new default pattern, unless you stay with the old ones. So if you choose the toxic pattern, you are apt to develop an addiction to stress. If you choose a pathway made of love's power, it increases your ability to see greater possibilities, to see new contexts, and to see novel solutions to problems. Now, when your brain comes to understand and perceive the world with healthy and loving chemicals, with the chemicals that are created from love, a self-reinforcing feedback loop is practiced then over and over. And then this upgraded awareness becomes more automatic and more your default pattern across events and across situations. On the other hand, an opposite self-reinforcing feedback loop is also possible if you see things as existing only within the limited purview that there's no purpose or meaning for something that's stressful. So when you do this, you're making a cortisol-producing brain pathway more durable and more difficult to change. So again, remember that the chemical pathway you choose becomes the default pathway. And when it is toxic, it will become an addiction to stress. But when it's made of love's wisdom, it actually increases your ability to see new possibilities, to see broader contexts or broader perspectives, and to think of more powerful solutions. So it may seem like a stretch, but by remembering that you don't know all the elements that are creating the present and that you don't know what the future holds, you can actually trust that harmony is playing out. Harmony is playing out, even when your brain doesn't understand all the notes in harmony's song. And this trust gives you a greater feeling of peace, which allows your brain more access to your wisdom, which allows you to be more of a creator of heaven on earth. So in order to dissolve your barriers and create a mental transition to increased awareness, you must be willing to experience the death of your barriers. The death of the barriers that are preventing you from experiencing heaven. This means letting go of the paradigm that says, I can see the whole context. We must be willing and open to see an expanded way of thinking, an expanded way of understanding. We must be willing to think in a broader way. So how do an expanded awareness and an intentional focus apply to relationships and to life purposes? Well, the possibilities for your life are endless, but only if you allow yourself the power and responsibility to focus on and act in service to heaven on earth. And to do this, you have to see all lives without the boulder in your eye. The boulder is your barrier that blocks your mind and divides you from others and separates you. So while it's necessary to judge thoughts and actions in order to choose what you want to think and do, don't judge people. Only from ignorance can we believe that we can understand the history, the intentions, and the roots of another person's choices. We have no idea about all the factors aligning to create another person's thoughts or actions. The intentions of others' actions are often much more important than any rules. An enormous example of this is that the people who hid the Jewish people during the Holocaust chose to tell bold and continuous lies in order to save lives. People all over the world today are trying to save their children's lives and finding themselves having to break rules to do this. The love in one's intentions is the truth, beyond the truth of any behavior itself. The love in the intentions of love are what is the truth, beyond anything you can see or know. The wisdom of love knows that it can't judge. A recent personal example is of two people that I know who recently stole a dog from their own family member. They did this out of love to save the dog's life. The dog's owner called the police not to retrieve the dog, but to punish the people who stole the dog and who had saved the dog's life. And the police eventually dropped the case when they realized the intentions behind the actions on both sides of the matter. So as the saying goes, let the one who has no sin cast the first stone of judgment. This is because the person without sin in their eyes does not see a person to throw stones at. They see what love is constructing and unfolding in their life and in every life. Anything else would lead to thoughts of separation and division, into a downward cycle of addiction to toxic and destructive chemicals of the emotions that were caused by the thoughts that see a separation. It is up to each of us to choose thoughts and actions that create life and connection and experiences of love and cooperation. When you are operating from your wisdom, from your mind of love, you can see the problems to address rather than believing a person is the problem. Don't see others' lives as lacking love. Certain behaviors and pain and emotion and ignorance, they do not define a life. These are signs that a life, whether your own or someone else's, is needing more awareness of love's existence. But these are not signs that love does not exist. Where you see a problem, you can find solutions when you use the wisdom of love. It is in the process of using love that heaven is revealed. That's how you help reveal heaven. Heaven is not an end goal. It is the experience of love's wisdom in action. Love can use anything to create something better. Do not look for the absence of love. You won't find it. Love is everywhere. And being blind to this is what creates problems. The wise don't judge. They don't judge themselves as separate from others. They don't judge themselves as better or worse than others. They see themselves as united with others. Thus, they feel all and they want the best for all. And this is the experience of heaven's environment on earth. So how can you experience yourself as a part of heaven on earth? Well, remove the boulder from your mind's eye, and then you will see clearly and be able to remove the pebble out of another person's eye, the pebble. This means you support others in knowing that they are not separate from heaven either. If you need to, use forgiveness to dissolve any barriers that are preventing you from seeing the power and the durability of your love. Seeing the power of love, the love that is within you, it brings the reality of being alive and the ideal of heaven together, also known as heaven on earth. Seeing life through a clear lens of love brings heaven into your experience of life on earth. Heaven is available to our awareness when we stop clinging to thoughts that were created from ignorance and thoughts that were created by the ego's limited perception. Heaven appears when we let go of limited thinking and look to see that love is reliable for understanding and experiencing the world. Heaven comes to the hungry stomach in the form of food. Heaven comes to the hungry heart in the form of love. Heaven is what we need, both in this life and eternally. We need love. It is the energy that lives forever. If you liked this video, please subscribe to the channel and click on the like button and share the video to help it reach out to more people. Videos on this channel are about love's power, about communication skills, about relationships, and about nature. And it is free to subscribe. Welcome and thank you so much for your time.